welcome back to Boomeadow builds Seeker's Respite in Gemreave, which is in SoA, which is the Feywild of my world, and welcome to everybody who is watching already. It is great to have you here. Hello, Spinner. We love having you here, man. It is Wednesday morning. I have had not enough coffee for this. That will teach me for staying up late. But hopefully... Spinner, I am just glad that we can break up the monotony of your workday. Okay, so hopefully we can make a bit more of a dent today and hopefully get this finished. We'll see. I just noticed that there is... Oh no, I'm okay with the shadows. So what are we actually working on? We're putting in buildings and trees and making things pretty. That's what I was doing. Yeah, so Gemreave is part of the Court of Lightning, so all of SoA is broken up into the different seasonal courts. And when I say that is I do follow a lot of the cardinal directions for how I build my my Feywild. It is very tied into the elements, very paganistic in the way that it follows the lay of the land and things like this. So we have obviously the courts of spring, summer, winter, autumn, but then they are tied up into different courts. So the main court covering the integral central sections, we have starting at winter, because winter is earth, is related to earth. Obviously spring is related to air. Summer, fire, autumn, water, obviously. And so we have the Court of Snow, the Court of Flowers, the Flaming Court, and the Court of the Hunt. The Hunt being referencing, I believe it is in both Greek and Celtic mythos, the Hunt. So, and then we've got the incidental courts that are shared between them. So between winter and spring, there is the Court of Mist. In between spring and summer, there is the Court of... between spring and summer, there is the Court of Lightning. Summer and autumn is the Court of Steam. And then between autumn and winter is the Court of Mud. So it's the Ooze Court. Kind of taking reference back to the elemental planes and how they kind of tie into that. So yeah, I like making references to that and, you know, bringing that back around. So, and so I have been in the process of figuring out, because I've got a couple of characters where this becomes integral. So the central part where the big world tree is, Yggdrasil, the big part around that is I'm trying to think of... District's not the right word. I'm trying to think of the word right now and it's eluding me. Like I said, not enough coffee. But essentially, by each... Again, kingdom's not the right word, but you get what I mean, like different states and things like this. So Arborealis is the name of the area around Idrisil. And what that is actually pertaining to is that is actually where the Eladrin courts reside. And what the Eladrin courts do is they are not beholden to any of the seasonal courts. They are actually only beholden to the elements itself, and obviously Idrisil, and maintaining Idrisil and the people that basically worship Idrisil and respond to it. So the Fae have a very strong hierarchy in my world. If I actually, so I can actually read from my own document, that would be helpful. So I don't get any misinformation. So at the head of the hierarchy, above all of this, so region, thank you, Spinner, yes. So at the head of this hierarchy is the mothers, or the Herenvir, meaning fortune weavers. Essentially, they are the 3 old elemental hags who live under Idrisil, in the space under Idrisil. And they are essentially, again, like I said, I pertain mine a lot to real world lore, mythos, and this kind of thing. So they are kind of like the Norn or the Fates, you know, and they are referencing kind of that. And they themselves only, and the reason that they are the head of this hierarchy is because they are only beholden to, because they are basically, they safeguard the relationship between the fundamental powers of the universe and the physical manifestations. So like the actual nature of magic itself, and their connection to the world tree, because the world tree is the physical manifestation of magic in the world. They basically, so the Eladrin courts basically are only held in responsibility by the mothers, but also the chosen messengers of the deities of that kind of reside over this kind of central section. So they are Amaya Hedon, who is known as the Spirit in the Stars, and Leviathan the Night Serpent. Leviathan the Night Serpent, again, is in reference to Nidhalgr, who is under the tree of Idrisil, biting at the roots. And they are essentially the entities of magic and basically the absence of everything, the void. And then they've got a couple of messengers, chosen messengers that they kind of work through, which are the Erokuvo, the Squirrel Travelers, and the Golden Weaving Spiders of Arania, which is another small region in Faerweir. But it is known commonly between the people that the smaller the spider, the more deadly its poison, kind of thing, which is reference to a really wonderful book series that I actually love, which is the Black Jewels trilogy by Anne Bishop. And it was a concept that, you know, I'm like, I would really love to see how I could make this come to life in a world. There are some, I will say with that story, there are some problematic, or at least references in the book that are worrisome, that I wouldn't recommend for younger readers. There is a level of seriousness in the book that I definitely wouldn't, it is definitely for a mature audience. So just as a heads up on that, if you do decide to read them. But I really wanted to see that come into fruition. And so yes, the Eladrin courts are in reference to the Heart Guard, the hearts or the red deer that are commonly depicted around, you see commonly depicted around Idrisil in like pictures and stuff. And so their point is basically to protect magic, protect the elements and what the elements actually, and what the elements are kind of like beholden to and things like this. So But not only that, obviously they have a level of nobility as well that they do kind of. I wouldn't say that they're royalty per se, but they are a level of nobility. And from there, obviously their firstborns are there to essentially carry on the duties as the family would require. But then their second, third, fourth born, etc., are usually sent away to have training to become archivists to the Iberana, which is a place in my world that was once known as the Vanishing Library, or the Sanctuary, which is in the Dreamscape. And the Dreamscape is very, very important to the world because obviously there is lots of my world that references that can be affected by dreams in my world, and that dreams can be one of the first ways into the consciousness and into controlling the people, or even possessing people if you can get in through the dreams. And there are actually people who protect the dreams and the dreamscape and basically make sure that it is safe, and generally people are safe. So and that kind of will come into play because we have a couple of characters who are tied into those stories. So I can't wait to share them with you, basically. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been working on. And then from there, under the mothers, are the Fae Kings and Queens. The Summer and Winter Courts have the traditional Fae Queens. So the Summer and Winter Courts have the traditional Fae Queens. However, the Spring and Autumn Courts are ruled by men. So, they are ruled by kings, should I say. And at the moment, I've only really figured out the Spring Court because that's the one that we were going to interact with the most, at least initially. And so we have Jury, the... what is his name? The Rising King, Jury, the Green Lord. And he basically is in the Court of Flowers, in the Rising Dominion, as it's called, is the name of the stronghold there. From there, under the kings and queens and this kind of thing, we have the lords, lairds, and ladies of the courts. So lords, ladies, and lairds of the courts. And they are essentially the entities and things like this that rule each region, I guess, specifically. So if I show you the Faeowerian map, so when I say region, we're talking like Arakor, Polaris, Ilmar, places like that. Each of those has a lord, laird, or lady. And so what we've got at the moment in the Court of Mist, so Arakor below the mountain range there, is Caxia, the Lady of the Ferns. In the Court of Flowers, we have two, covering Vardamine and Selame. Vordamine and Selame is Kani, the Soft Lady, and Ketmani, the Flower Prince. And then in the Court of Lightning, in Gimriv and the eastern side of Calliope, is Vatnar, the Storm King, the Storm River, and Tubbo, the Hive Lord, which any guesses what the Hive Lord kind of watches over, basically. So yeah, so that's kind of what I've worked on. And I do have like references to which kind of real world deities that they kind of align to for at least some inspiration. So however, the only one that, well, no, because he does still have some kind of like recognition in the, essentially in the real world. Vatnar, the Storm River, also goes by other names in my world. I believe he's I believe one of the players has also given him a name. Old Man Salty, he's known as. He's also known as Pelikov. So he's also known as Pelikov and things like this. So he's essentially kind of a little bit, his story, his lore, at least started out a little bit in the realm of Njörður. So, and then obviously I take their lore, mix it, match it, and try to create a really cool story element out of it, because he is descendant of the storm giants in my world that are essentially made to, once upon a time, that they were essentially designed to prevent a great catastrophe from the ocean and the waves destroying the land. And that has since changed a little bit. Obviously, because the whole world has changed after the Starfall. So, but yeah, some of his family were the Storm Giants, and the reason that they had to basically do that protective job and stop this storm was because the reason they had to stop this storm was because it was kind of like a divine punishment for trying to kidnap the water goddess and give over her power to them. The water goddess at the time was an elemental dragon by the name of Azili. So, yeah. And obviously she did not appreciate being kidnapped. So part of her divine punishment from her father to the storm giants was that they would have to be tied magically to this place and protect the world that they had created. And when I say they created, I'm meaning the elemental dragons had created. So yeah, that's kind of what they're doing there. So, and Pelikov didn't know that originally, because we're actually playing out Pelikov's story at the moment in the Tuesday game when it returns in a couple of weeks. Pelikov has only just really found out who he is, and the only reason he has just recently found out who he is because his mother never told him. She obviously doesn't look like a storm giant. She actually had escaped, and he's got a bit of a story to him insofar as so his mother escaped, and she explored, saw the world, had a bit of fun, found a guy, fell in love with him, and essentially had a one-night stand, and this led to Pelikov being born. And that was when she found out who this man that she had fallen for was. Turns out that it was none other than one of Azilia's own husbands, because she had 3 husbands that were all islands. Yes, she had 3 husbands that were all islands that were made for her by her twin brother, who was the elemental dragon of Earth. And one of these men, she happened upon one of these men on one of these islands, and so they had a love affair. This led to Pelikov, and to protect her son, she basically gave up her storm giant power, disguised herself as a tiefling for her entire life. He was born a tiefling. And from there, basically retired into a life as a fisherwoman, but even she couldn't deny her son's love for the sea. And he ended up going into a path where he became a fisherman, working on boats and things like this, and this is how he met the party. And he has now since found out that he is actually a demigod of streams and rivers and waterfalls, And the only reason he found all this out is because he legit during a shipwreck, he ended up in the water and he drowned. And the elder elemental of water, who is the elder elemental of water, she goes by different names. In this particular setting, she will be referred to as Transormir, or the Master of the Seas. But in the Tuesday game, she's just referred to as Granny. She rescued him at the behest because where his ship went down was actually near the island that was his father, because his father does have connection to this island, essentially. And the ship went down near that, and that was when the first time his father realized he had a son. And because he himself couldn't leave his island to rescue him, he basically sent Granny to go find Pelikov and keep him safe, and this is how Pelikov has ended up as a warlock. But he has powers over water, and it led people to question a lot of things, because there is... at this point it didn't need to be, because it awoke, his death awoke powers in him. But he's a lurker of the deep. This is how we're kind of explaining the fact that he's a lurker of the deep. Warlock. Patron. Yeah. And the other thing that kind of confirmed it was when he actually died, because he was, I suppose, technically dead for about a minute. There is a place in this world called the Cascade Isles, which has obviously a lot of waterfalls. At the moment of his death, for a minute, the falls stopped. The water stopped flowing, which meant that he always had the water magic. He was just not, he himself was not aware of it. And they recently went to Cascade Isles, and he found all of this out, and the more he's discovering, the more he's becoming aware of his powers, the more he's realizing that he has power. But he has also now since found out by asking Granny about it, because obviously Granny being the the eldritch elemental of water, she knew what went on between... She knows the story of what went on between Pelikov's grandfather and the Mistress of Water, who I suppose is now technically his stepmother. And he also found out that he's got like 9 half-sisters, who are essentially the embodiment of the waves. And they're not going to be happy to find out that he exists, basically. Which I'm sure you can understand why Azili would be upset to learn. She isn't against the fact of her husband, like, she herself, as I said, she's got 3 husbands. She wouldn't be against the fact that, you know, this man that is her husband. Thank you for the follow. She wouldn't be against the fact that her husband had this one night. It was a subscribe. Thank you again, evil one. Yay. So it wasn't the fact that he had a one night stand. That was not a problem. She herself, you know, she's not against her significant others having, you know, these trysts, basically. But one of the rules that she has with them is there were to be no children, because these men who are islands, they contain minor powers of the sea, because they're a combination of the sea and land. So she and her brother are obviously the elemental dragons of earth and water, respectively. And so it means that if they have any children outside of that, they could end up being demigods. And essentially that is exactly what has happened. But not only that, if Azili finds out that Pelikov exists, he's also the son, her stepson then, is essentially the son of one of her most hated enemies, the man who tried to kidnap her and force her to give up her power. So that's the story that Pelikov's getting to work with, and that all started. So because of that, he also still exists in the world as one of the Fae lords now. By this point, my world has always had a custom pantheon. I think he just dipped in, Spinner, to resub, because I knew that he was going to be out and about today. So I think he literally dropped in to resubscribe. So, yeah, I always wonder who, like, I do kind of keep a little bit of a half eye on who's lurking to see if my players are dropping in just for the lurk and things like this. Just to, not the evil ones in this campaign. I've asked, but at this stage, no, he's got a lot of stuff on his own channel at the moment, and honestly, one of his big reasons is he just can't think of a character that he wants to play for this. And to be fair, I can understand that as well, because he actually has a lot of previous characters in the world that are still in play, in terms of NPCs now. Let me see if I can... No, not Undead Healer Paladin. Oh, jeez. So, let me see if I can remember off the top of my head all the characters he's got in this world, that are still around too. So we have, first and foremost at the top, at the head of the current pantheon, we have his Total Tranquility Monk Wild Soul Barbarian Neishing Anning. He is a god of balance. Balance and order at the top of this, but specifically balance at the top of this pantheon. And currently, while he is in play as the head god of the pantheon, we won't actually see a lot of him, because the only reason that there is still a connection to the celestial planes after the merge is because Neishing is basically in a deep trance keeping it connected, so that all of the gods who are now in a coma, essentially, still have connection to their followers, and they don't basically disappear completely, because if people stop believing in the ascendant gods, essentially they lose their divinity and they will die. So he's currently in a coma, so that's fun for him. Other characters in the world, let me see. There is also the goddess of chaos, Eris, that is also his character, and she will be in play in this game, because obviously there are going to be strong ties to chaos and things like this. The Chaos Maiden is her god title, and so she's in play as well. But yeah, she's going to be even more chaotic for this particular playthrough, because the world is very out of balance. Chaos and order is all over the shop. Thank you, Tide Runner. I will save just for you. I actually just saved as well, hilariously, before you dropped in. But welcome. It is great to have you here. Yay. So the world is out of balance, and we're going to see a real pushback from, essentially divine order is going to be pushing back tyrannical order to kind of correct how much chaos has been in the world for so long. So there's Neishing, Eris. We have Agent V from Alpha, which is the Alien Liaison Federal Agency. And basically any planeswalkers, any extra dimensional kind of characters that shouldn't be in the world, that's what Alpha takes care of, but there's also the organization that takes care of problematic extraplanar kind of things, and that's obviously Omega. So the Alpha and the Omega, because why not? And yes, we did go through. Agent V is a Verdant, and we did go through all of the potential playable species and things like this and create an agent for every letter of the alphabet. So there is that. We also have Billy Bob Bill Bobby Cletus IV. He is straight up just a human who ended up leaving his swamp 1,000 years ago, ended up in a battle against giant mech robots, ended up planeswalking. He is an inventor, and so at this point, if he is still in the world somewhere, which I believe it's confirmed that he's in the world somewhere, but at this point he's mostly cyborg, so mostly robotic. So yeah. And yes, Tide Runner is here. Is Tide Runner here? I'm not sure. You are indeed. Wonderful, because yeah, it's not showing up as a mod. So I'm like, are you even here? You exist. Yeah, my list hasn't updated to show you. So rude, I know. But yeah, so Tide Runner, who is in this game, Spinner, he's actually playing a legacy character of... He's playing his own great-grandson, basically, in this game. And his previous character is still in the world as an archdruid who is consulting and helping the speakers of the Eladrin courts specifically. Because his character for this world, Harsaruk, his great-grandmother is a summer Eladrin. So yeah, he's kind of tied into that. Which is always fun. Do like. Actually, I'm going to put trees there. Why not? So yeah. So yes, I do have a tendency to put a lot of... I really enjoy creating the world lore behind it all. Tide Runner just finished explaining Pelikov's story because Pelikov clearly is still in the world. Or for anyone who has seen the trailer, as we jokingly call him, he is in that trailer, but we kind of lovingly refer to his image in the trailer as Swolikov. Because in the artwork I did for him, he is certainly more buff than the current existing character in the Tuesday game. And yeah, so he's called Old Man Salty, or he is also a Fey Lord now, Tide Runner. So you would know him as Old Man Salty, but for the area, which hilariously, as you would be aware, he is the Fey Lord of Gimreef, which is where your character also resides from. So Old Man Salty, you would know him as, but he's also known as Vatnar, the Storm River. So had to put him in the world for you. And give him significance, because why wouldn't he have significance in the world? Edgy. Well, I had to... he's going to be there already, so I figured it was just easier, you know. And he's still a god. Okay, Spinner. Thank you for dropping by. It's always lovely to have you here. And you are welcome to come back anytime. So yeah, I've just been talking about Tide Runner. I've been talking about the Feawarian world lore, the world lore as it pertains to the Eladrin, the Spring Eladrin documents I sent you. So yeah, and I'm intrigued as to what you actually think of the lore as it exists now. I did give Tyrant Dungeon some information as well, because he's got some dream stuff as well. 'Tis most interesting. Anything jump out at you as interesting, exciting, or... Because knowing you are having deep thoughts about things. Yep, we kind of had just big discussions, more specifically about Bao, which of course, for those who don't know, Bao is Tyrant Dungeon's character for the campaign. His name is Professor Bao Smells. So, and he is a Sphinx Tabaxi. So, I cannot wait to show you all the characters, because there's some fun ones. Naked mole cat. Well, his artwork is very adorable. Interested in meeting Tubbo, the Hive Lord? Yeah. I wonder what he is a lord of, what race he is as well. Are we going to see the rise of B. Rook again? Because that was by far one of my most fun little references. Three Creen, yeah. Yeah, we probably will steer clear of the last part, last one, just in case. I'm going to have to come up with something creative, I think, if we're going to potentially bring them in as a kind of... Yeah, we're going to steer clear of Illithids and Mind Flayers at this stage. I'm happy to bring in other Eldritch deities and things like this, but specifically Mind Flayer, Illithid, Beholders. I might find a way to work around them. Look at different systems for potential threats like that. I mean, we do have the reference enough of like Cthulhu, not necessarily specifically Cthulhu, but Cthulhu-like creatures. So Eldritch horrors, which are mostly eyeballs and stuff like that. So we might work with that a little bit. But yeah, no, I'm gonna try and future-proof myself a little bit just in case. Especially because I would like to be able to keep this I would like to be able to keep streaming the game as much as possible if we can, while avoiding some of the drama surrounding it. I don't necessarily want to I want to kind of avoid any of that drama while also still being able to enjoy the game that we actually enjoy. But yes, just at the moment, considering all of the information that's going around about that whole scenario, I'm just kind of avoiding it a little bit. Because my world is very homebrew, very bespoke for you guys specifically, so... And I want to keep it that way. Yeah. The problem is, it isn't too hard to do that necessarily, because obviously a lot of my world is homebrew. And customized, and that's not necessarily the problem. The problem is steering clear of trademarked monsters, and unfortunately some of those creatures are heavily into that category of trademark. We will start probably seeing a lot of monsters in this particular setting from Kobold Pressed Tome of Beasts, because I have edition 1, 2 and 3 of that, so we'll see some creatures from that and whatnot, and yeah, we'll have to just go from there. Yeah, I have a bit of a standpoint now that I will continue running this system in the game that we love and the game that I obviously advertise to people for. But at the same time, most of my world is homebrew. In terms of that, that's not going to affect me too much. But I also understand that it's going, like, everything that's happening is affecting a lot of the third-party creators that I actually really enjoy having materials from. So, you know, that's my whole kind of belief in that. But yes, Tide Runner, I am going to endeavour to do my best to bring your little part of the world that you have created, bring that into fruition for the story. But yes, there's a lot of exciting world lore specifically that I'm really excited for. I feel a bit sorry for Bao in terms of the rest of the party. Like, they're actually quite a young group of characters, like most adventurers, I think, which is fine. Have no problem with that. I feel sorry for Bao though, because from, like, even your character still has a lot of the weight of parental expectation. Whereas in talking with Tyrant Dungeon, Bao doesn't necessarily have that. So, like, his parents don't want him to take over the family business or anything like that. Whereas I feel like, from what you and I have talked about, and I know that I've joked a lot about, you know, everyone in the group has daddy issues. You're right. Your character doesn't necessarily have daddy issues, but they do have a lot of the weight of parental expectation. Oh, just because you have other siblings doesn't mean that there isn't still parental expectation. And I know that, like, for example, your character has a really great relationship with their great grandfather. You know, but that would cause some problems too, because from the way that we've talked, your parents are archivists. They want you to have a decent job, have a decent life. They're not bad parents. They just don't necessarily think that going off, having adventures, saving the world, they're dangerous endeavors. You know, they want you to be happy and healthy, and, you know, they've got the realization that not only is their son, not only does their son have these ideas about, you know, the heroics of his great grandfather, their son also has a knack and a penchant for making guns and explosives and things like this. Yeah, exactly. They want you to be happy, healthy, alive, and yeah, you enjoy making weapons, and some of those things are dangerous. Yeah, he still works with Arcana Tech, but it doesn't negate the fact that he obviously also makes grenades. Like, experiments with grenades, making his own grenades. You can understand, surely, from that perspective, why your parents might be a little bit worried about your well-being. And I have this theory that part of the reason that they were okay with, like, allowing you to go off on essentially this gap year kind of situation was because they were hoping that you would see what the real world was like and realize that you were following dangerous pursuits. Most likely, yeah. But isn't that part of growing up? Thank you for the save, Tide Runner. I will complete that as requested. Okay, what else are we working with here? Might want to put in some, purple bush. Let's have a look. We've got some gardens and things like this, so we need to put in. cat. Cats. The cats have names. Delilah Ginger, Luna Midnight, Mrs. Sniffles, Cheryl, Jeremy, and Nicholas. Did they name the horses? Nope. Oh, Charlie the Unicorn! Let's do something terrifying. All the butterflies. Put butterflies everywhere. That's hilarious. They can't be seen very well through the clouds. Lots of butterflies now. Makes me happy. Do I want to put... That moment I realize I can go, oh, hella crazy on the Fae. Like, just... It's an area thing. I need to increase the density, I think. Does this now look like a magical forest of the Fae? Do we need more colours of Fae lights? That's the question. I need to know now. I'm having fun, too much fun, like now filling out your magical Fae forest. Ah, I know. There's all these things. However, I did... Wait. Strawberry pots and things. Yeah. I got distracted. I got a little distracted. I was looking for flower beds. I was looking for these things. I got distracted by the cats. That's what started it. Realizing the cats were not called Cheryl and Jeremy. Okay, let's have a look here. More town buildings. Okay. Get these buildings in place. And by doing this, a hell of a lot more people live in this area now. Because I imagined, like, I like all the really big buildings you put in and everything on yours, but I imagine the actual community of Seeker's Respite is actually quite large. It is a city, after all. Evil. Why are you like this? Why are you like this? Yeah, place that building. Just the random. I wasn't expecting you to just jump in and be like, yeah, place that. And I appreciate you being here. We found out that there was a whole heap of cats that actually have names in this. And I'm not going to lie, it did distract me for a little bit. See? The cats. We have Delilah Ginger, Luna Midnight, Mrs. Sniffles, Cheryl, Jeremy, Nicholas. And then there's also Charlie the Unicorn. How does that look when I turn the backing off? Nah, it doesn't make 100% sense there. More like... That's a bit better. I need one over here, I think. You're on the edge for the next building. Jeez. Are you making fun of my world building? My map building here. I'm doing my best, man. Do we need a Griffin Rider pen? Turn off the words. Where's the entrance here? We want to do. Thank you for the hype. Love to see it. It's a... So you want the general store to be smaller, huh? It's a pretty massive general store. It's the Bunnings. It's Costco. Well, we already know that there is Costco style warehousing, you know, available in the world. After all, you guys broke in and stole all the eggs and sugar from one. Egg, sugar, flour to make a giant cookie about 1,000 years prior. kind of imagined as well. And one thing we did talk about, but we actually haven't put them on yet. Where are we putting some cranes to haul stuff up? Because at this stage, you've designed all this wonderful large city and it's really, really great, but they don't have farming capabilities. So they're not producing their own food. Yeah, they can sell cobalt sandwiches and put onions on top. I'm here for it. Wait, aren't dragon dogs a thing in this world? Didn't Billy have a dragon dog? I mean, in 1,000 years, you brought all the people from your area. They've had kids. That's pretty insular. And not every family is going to be as long-lived as Farouk. Not to mention, I imagine the shifters have big families. Like, even your own family tree is actually still pretty extensive when you consider it. Oh, it's fine. We can put in cranes so that it can also make sense that other areas in the floating islands do produce your agricultural needs. Because I imagine that there would be some of the kids who like legit like wanted, well, whose parents are like, we've been in farming for, you know, since we came from Anthalamere, you know, we're a farming family. Now I have to zoom out and reacquaint myself where the Spark Forge is. Do you want to tell Nemo that half of his temple's gone? So, do you want the general... I will save momentarily. Do you want the general store smaller? We can do that. That is the size it would have been in comparison to a regular house. Because that's the same. I mean, that's only because I picked the big merchants guild. I can literally make it that, like, that. I just figured if it's the only general store, it makes sense that, because if that's where everybody's buying a lot of their stuff from. But what were you thinking for the general store? What do they sell there? I'm not sure how that works, but okay, yeah. No, that was too much to hope. Well, the reason I ask is, do they sell foodstuffs? If not, then I have to add a market in as well. So we're talking butcher, bakers. Does it sell that kind of stuff? Or is it more of a, oh, well, we sell a bit of everything? Kind of like Costco. Because, yeah, the question then comes as to a town, community, blah, blah. I can make the area into a market. So you've got the general goods store there, and then they have like a market area that surrounds it that sells, more obvious, common, like, bakery, blah, blah. I can do that up. I can do that. That's what I want. Okay. So, because we actually have all this green spot here, so we can actually split that up into a bit more of a market square if you'd like. Zegent, how are you? Well, because that's the thing as well that I was taking into consideration. Because Tide Runner, it's not just your people. It wouldn't have just been, for example, the people of Titan's Point at this point, because you've evacuated a lot of the Anthalamerian. Like, we're talking the capital city of the Ascendant Isles as well. So Isla Dore and things like this. So it's no longer just like your community, which was what I was starting to kind of consider. I'm like, okay, well, at what point, like, I can definitely understand how they, and this wouldn't even have been half of the population. Like, there would have been people who stayed, but for example, you would have moved all of the enlightened children and stuff to this area, because you wouldn't have wanted the Anthalamerian queens to get your hands on them and things like that. So you've got a large Kalashtar community. You've got, the shifters and all this kind of stuff. There would have been people that didn't follow, and that's kind of that's what I had originally imagined this was it wasn't just like, yes, this was Farouk's baby of, like, protecting the people, like his people, but it's also it's not as simple as that. Oh yeah, and like, I can definitely make it smaller if you want. Yeah, I can definitely make it smaller now if you want, but well, because the other things I've got to add as well, like you and I have discussed recently, there's a school involved with this now, a university where you got your degree. And this is what I mean, like, as time has gone on with it, and I've realized, like, what such a level of technological growth, it also means, as a whole, the community itself has grown as well. As we discussed, part of your alchemy training. Okay, well, for your character to not be flagged for buying iron and things like this, all of a sudden your character needs to have some kind of degree. So where did he get this degree? And this is where I kind of really enjoy this part of the world building, because yeah, it stops just being, and this is why town building takes me so long, because I'm like, okay, well, what do you need to make a city function? And this is where I end up getting into a bit of trouble personally within my own brain, just because I'm like, okay, well, what industries do you then need to support those industries? And that's where the rabbit holing starts. And then, like, so for examples, first of all, they're an island home, so likelihood you're not, you know, there is that likelihood if we're going with, okay, well, what is the diets of these people like? You're an island home, you're a floating island, so it would stand to reason that most of your people eat a lot of fish. It is the easiest and fastest sustainable resource. Not only that, growing large meat animals takes a lot of resources. You know, space is the first thing, but then we also need food for those animals and things like this. So then I'm like, okay, well, and this is where the tavern building comes from too, because I then have to consider, okay, well, it makes sense then that Farouk's people eat a lot of fish and a lot of poultry because they tend to be smaller industries that they can kind of like focus on that isn't going to take up too much room, because a lot of their available space they would have then, that it means that mostly they're going to dedicate as much space as possible to vegetables, which would then stand to reason that a lot of these buildings that I've put in, okay, do they have their own like home gardens and stuff, so they're growing at least a semblance of some of their own vegetables and things like this, or do they have a farming area? So this is what I mean, that my brain rabbit holes, and I then start thinking and this is where I got into the trap with the previous Saturday game, and this is why there were so many guilds, because it's not just as it's not just as simple for my brain as, oh well, you know, there's a merchant's guild. Okay, yeah, there's a merchant's guild, but what do they sell? Where is that product coming from? Who is growing those products? How are those products made? What are the processes involved in this product? And I end up researching these because I'm like, okay, well, I find this really interesting, and this is where I start to learn really, really interesting things about all of these industries. But it then also floods my world with a level of realism, and then I end up getting to a point of, why am I doing this to myself? My world, these are things that the players may never interact with, so does it matter if they know the exact processes of, you know, from garden to table kind of situation? Like, does that matter? Oh yeah, the storm river, the lord of this area. Yeah, he would be making sure to a certain degree that the people of, well, he kind of leaves it to he kind of ends up leaving a lot of it to the lords, lairds, and ladies of of the area. So each town basically, he would leave it to his knights and knaves basically to make sure that each of their communities is. So the knights make sure the communities are doing what they're supposed to, and then the knaves essentially are the slightly more. They tend to be the ones who ensure that the word of the lord, laird, or lady is being, lord, liege, or lady is being followed. They're the enforcers, the knaves. So the bureaucrats and the protectors basically. And the other thing is as well is Seeker's Respite is one of those very interesting cases. So they're what I've been defining as a material run town, as in their leadership is originally from the material plane. So they operate on the very common rule of law in terms of what we would expect as like real world governance. And that means as well that, you know, they do have their own kind of sets of rules that they do kind of inherently follow, coming from like the human-ish realms. However, they are a very unique case because they have heavy ties to the Eladrin courts as well. Because where they are from, when they were part of Anthalamir, they were the strongest connection to the old ways and the Feywild. So they never really lost their connection to the Feywild. So even then, they were considered more Fey than material plane, even though they are a material run town. They are tolerated better than some because a lot of their laws kind of are reflective of the own Fey laws, like the old ways and the old Fey laws. I also decided to backtrack a little bit on the the Fae Can't Lie, just because getting you guys to be able to roleplay that adequately. I know that I think there's actually only one character that it's going to pertain to, but I kind of had to backtrack it a little bit to make their story be able to function properly. So I went, well, no, they can lie. But it's generally, it is very uncomfortable to do so. Yeah, a lot of the foods and stuff as well, Zesian, there is going to be a lot of importation as well, which is, you know, a lot of the fruit and vegetables, it's not such a big deal if they don't have a huge farming population here on the islands, just because they do have the floating markets below. And that is where they are going to get like a lot of, for example, they're not going to necessarily need like every type of fruit, vegetable that you could expect. For example, I wouldn't expect Seeker's Respite to have like an orchard as well as like that kind of garden, because they do have the markets below, and a lot of people would go to the floating markets below to get a lot of those other ingredients. So a lot of the markets up here are where the locals would go to get your everyday stuff. So the farms and stuff up here don't need to be particularly huge, but more contingencies if like you needed something immediately and you couldn't spare the, you know, like hour to go down the lifts and everything like that to essentially do the shopping that you needed to do for that day. Oh yeah, no, don't worry. There is going to be a lot of diplomatic conditions as well, because yeah, like I said, this community has a special situation within the Eladrin courts. They're technically not Eladrin, but they would have had a lot of dealings with the noble courts and things like this. So chances are, when we have session 0, there is going to be the opportunity that your character will know, or at least have some reference to who one of the other characters is, at least just because your character would maybe recognize their name. Also, just double checking on the title. When you said that I got the name wrong, was it just because it's Sebastian, not Bastion? Because that's not the nickname he goes by. Just double checking. I will also have to send you the document for the spring courts as well, Zegent. Okay. So how would you like that to be presented on the title card? We're finishing in 15 minutes, and then sorry, just talking to my daughter, as it is almost lunchtime. Normally they're not usually home because it's during it, but it is the summer school holidays for us, so. And I know I asked this last time, and so I apologize. Okay, so I've just got to make it Sebastian, not Bastion. Okay. Also, Tide Runner, I know I asked, but Skyhopper's Roost, to give me an indication of what it actually is, so I can put in the right. Is it a garrison or? Okay, it's a tavern. yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Funnily enough, the garrison is the garrison. Who would have guessed? I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've got this in my brain, this association that your character tends to be very animal. Usually, tends to be very animal based. And the fact that I've kept seeing, I think it's like a griffin rider or whatever. Um, I don't know why. I went. Has he actually put like a place where people can park their flying birds and stuff? They're flying. I don't know why. I'm gonna have to just turn off the writing so I can. Not that I can't see what I'm doing. It just. No, that wasn't deliberate. It was me making a misguided assumption about the nickname that you would be using. That's all it was. And it is A-okay that is obviously not how he wants to be presented, and I can change that easily. Because, yeah, it was just, for the most part, the name cards and everything are somewhat placeholders, because I will be actually putting artwork in as well. So, and that, obviously, I've spoken to Tyrant Dungeon about that, so, about what your character looks like and everything at this point, so, yeah, you'll actually see, and so I want to have that artwork displayed. So, yeah, it is not difficult for me to change it to make sure that it's the exact naming that you want, obviously, for your character. Yeah, and that was all it was. So, obviously, yeah, so that was just me shortening it at the time, and that is A-okay. I will 100% change that. Because obviously we want people to get the right first impressions about Sebastian. No. It's just, it's not that people don't like Kalishtar, it's just they've been kept very, they've been a very protected community. And it's not that they don't like them, it's just, it's very rare for people to have from the outside to have seen them. But it's also been 1,000 years, and you are no longer in the material plane. Largely in part thanks to Haas's great-grandfather and the efforts of the Ishladore Council of Elders. So yes, it's got absolutely nothing to do with your character not being liked. It's more... Yeah, it's more that there have been a lot of implications keeping your society secret and safe and protected, basically. get this last little line of houses in for this area, and then I think, see, if I'd had 4 hours this evening, I would have likely gotten this finished today. Well, 4 hours, 4.5 hours, I'd say roughly it would have got me done. But unfortunately, this is we are back to our changing stream times in the midweek, because if you would like to catch more of what I do, or at least see me roleplay, and join a really fun group of people, join me over on Evil One's channel this evening for some Grung Gang, in which we are a whole party of Grung who are basically just doing their best in a world that honestly needs to be saved from us, I think, at this point. Let's be honest. Yeah, so if you like chaos, if you like pop culture references, if you like seeing some of the horror movies and stuff like this, we've got a lot of that at the moment. We have Fort Jason, we have Escaped Egrup Day. All of those little references are in there. And if you like that kind of stuff and you want to just see us be, in general, crazy and chaotic, join us over on Evil One's channel tonight. Otherwise, I will be back again tomorrow, playing some Tinykin. So we will hopefully get through the Tinykin tomorrow. But otherwise, if you predominantly come and join me for my map building stuff, join me this Saturday in my usual stream time slot, and we should most likely get this map of Seeker's Respite done then. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening or night, wherever you are in the world. I really love that you join me here, you have a chat, and you just kind of join me and enjoy the map building process. I will talk to you all again tomorrow, and, well, if I don't talk to you again tomorrow, I will talk to you on Saturday, or whenever you just decide to join me next. That would be fantastic. If you aren't already following my page, don't hesitate to hit the follow button and turn on notifications so you know when I go live. Otherwise, if you're feeling generous and you have the capability to do so, please feel free to subscribe. If not, that is a-okay. There is no pressure there at all. If you would like to have some fun just for a little bit of a crazy time, as a thank you to all of you who have followed, I will be doing a impromptu kind of semi-planned thank you to my followers on Friday night with a group of friends from the channel, insofar as Tydrunner Gaming, Queen Zephyr, I believe we will have Tyrant Dungeon maybe listening in, having a chat, as unfortunately he does not play the game that we were going to play, but we're going to stream some Among Us. So we're going to have a group of friends of the channel together in a Discord playing that, and the way that I'm going to run it for myself, as the way that, obviously, as a thank you to all my beautiful 100 followers, 103 followers at this point, is I will be allowing you to put in votes as to who you think the imposter is for my votes, rather than me doing it myself. So if you're interested in that, join me on Friday night to watch some Among Us. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful time, and I will see you all later. Bye.
Terrorized, push me behind to get me from my better side. I wanna push you back, but that's all you want.